People who are the reason for certain rules. What is your story? Former co-workers of mine. Contracted employees have a maximum amount of time that they can work each week. Company pushed a lot of 60-plus-year-old employees into retirement via a benefits change. A bunch of those who retired re-signed on as contracted hourly workers and started making more money than they had before they retired. Checking ID at work when we have parties that contain alcohol used to be an honor system until a newly hired person under 21 drank too much and vomited in the hallway. Screw the honor system, my liver needs alcohol.
Hey, you're ruining it for the rest of us!
They banned doing handstands at my primary school because we used to play the game where you'd sing a song and go up into a handstand, and when I went up, for some reason, my arm just gave way and I landed on my shoulder and broke my collarbone. I saw my old teacher a few weeks ago, and apparently that's the handstand story equivalent of the boy who swung back on his chair and cracked his head open. Oh god, that reminds me of how in primary school I used to swing back and forth on my chair until one day one of my best friends at the time actually cracked his head open on the corner of a table behind him, and he left a big old pool of blood there. It was awful. There was also a guy who slipped on a banana peel, legitimately slipped on a freaking banana peel and fell down stone steps, and they had to get paramedics in or something. When I was going into 6th grade, my family was moving to a new town. In order to prevent myself and my brother from having to go through the hassle of moving and to alleviate some of their stress, my parents decided to send us to sleepaway camp for 6 weeks. My brother, 2 years older, proceeded to get extremely sick within the first week or so that we were at camp. He was on bed rest, and at more than one point, the staff had to bring him into the small town nearby to go to the hospital. My mother had a tendency to overreact and make mountains over molehills. She was extremely unhappy with the staff and thought it was outrageous that my brother got that sick that quickly, assuming that someone must have showed up to camp on the first day knowing they were sick and spread the germ to my brother. Luckily, he recovered after the first week and was able to enjoy the rest of the summer. When the term was over, we left camp excited to see our new house and meet the people at our new school. Fast forward to the next summer, our parents saw how much we enjoyed camp and decided that having us out of the house for a month wasn't so bad for themselves either. Instead of driving us this summer, they decided to send us on the buses the camp ran to different counties and states. The total ride was about 4 hours, an eternity for a middle schooler with a surplus of energy. Once we arrived at the camp, the buses all line up and there's an in-process tent set up where all the kids had to walk through before they could get their bags and go to their cabins. It was taking forever. I started to get irritated. I had waited all year for this, now I have to wait more. I finally get off the bus and into the tent and see what they're doing. Each camper is getting asked a series of questions about their current health. Are they feeling sick? Do they have any allergies? Do they have any prescriptions, etc.? They would then get their temperature taken by the nurse to confirm they did not have a fever and were sent with a counselor to their cabin. I got to the end of the line and asked the nurse why they're doing all of this because it is taking so long and I was being an impatient child. Her response, parent was very upset last summer that their camper got sick, so now we are screening everyone and quarantining them if they show any signs of symptoms of being ill. I look at my brother who is standing behind me and yelled, "Thanks a lot!" In 3rd grade, I jumped off a very tall piece of playground equipment, smacked my chin on my knee and bit my tongue. It was a bloodbath, and the teacher passed out and hit her head off of the pavement, resulting in another bloodbath. Well, the next morning, there was an announcement stating no more jumping off the tower on the playground. The next day, the teacher's son tried jumping off of a rope swing over the schoolyard fence and broke both of his arms. The school removed all of the fun stuff off the playground that summer. I can only imagine they were probably the most hated people on the playground for a little while after that. At my school, it was a rule to not act like a ninja. When I was young, I got interested in Naruto, so I started acting like a ninja. 3 people saw me and started acting like ninjas as well. The teacher noticed, so she told us to stop. We stopped for the day, but the next day we did it again. Our teacher was getting annoyed, so she gave us a bad star, a red star that meant you were bad. At the end of the week, you had to take the bad star home for your parents to see. We got mad at the teacher, so when she wasn't looking, one of the ninjas stood up and walked slowly. He plopped the red stars from each of the ninja's star sheets. Teacher noticed and had enough. She sent us to the principal's office. He was laughing but told us to stop. Next day, there was a rule. Don't act like ninjas. Bunch of goddamn uppity ninjas. So at my high school, there was a rule that was added my junior year and is even in bold in the student parent handbook. This rule was that students are not allowed off campus during the 10-minute passing period at all. The reason that this rule exists is that my sophomore year, I was really craving a Starbucks during my first period, so in the last few minutes of the period, I mobile ordered a coffee and then during break ran half a mile to pick up my coffee and walk back. I made it back to my class on time, but the school still tried to get me in trouble until I said, "Show me where it says I can't leave campus during the passing period in the handbook and I will accept any punishment. Otherwise, you have no grounds to punish me." And after 20 minutes of sitting in the office, I got out with no punishment. Then, my junior year, that rule was added to the handbook. To this day, it's one of my worst accomplishments. I'm just waiting for that person to be like, "I'm the reason that they locked Newgrounds or Miniclip or Armored Games from the school computers." I moved from the Midwest to Texas to attend college. It was the first time I tasted deep-fried okra. The cafeteria was all you could eat. The okra was like sniff to me, and I ate plateful after plateful. Pretty soon, the rule was 2 servings per meal. I got Beyblades banned in 4th grade, circa like 2002. My mom had cheaped out and bought me an off-brand Beyblade that was heavier and I think made out of metal or something dense. Anyways, we had this one kid who would bring in like the Battle Dome or whatever they had. My Beyblade would collide with theirs and theirs would just go flying out of the dome at unsuspecting victims. Picking up speed, running out of time, going head to head, it's a way of life, you gotta fall down, eat ground to get back up again. Let's Beyblade! I adored Beyblade as a kid. The anime, the Beyblades themselves, they were so cool. I thought it was the best fad to come out at that time in schools and stuff. Yeah, there was the hazards and everything, but it was cooler than frickin' Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I have fallen so frickin' far off from. I don't even know what's going on in that anymore. I also remember Battle Beat-A-Man, which I really liked and I even bought, but like no one gave a crap about Battle Beat-A-Man. Does anyone even freaking remember Battle Beat-A-Man? Back in the day on Neopets, there was this rule that you couldn't make posts titled things like Girls Only Party, but the rule was never enforced. So one day when I was 12, and on my mother's Neopets account since I was too young to use the Neo boards, I made one of these boards, and everything was fine for the first 10 to 15 pages. Everyone was staying within the rules on the rule-breaking post, so TNT, the Neopets team, basically the mods and developers and stuff, left us alone. And then someone decided to RP going swimming, which was kind of risky and I warned against it. Shortly thereafter, someone made a post that was pretty similar to the following. "Oh, okay. Gets out of water, bikini falls off. Oops." The board was instantly deleted. My mother's account was permanently frozen, and from that day forward, when someone used the word bikini on the Neo boards, a filter changed the word to cardigan. When I worked at Whole Foods in the prepared food section, I used to make myself a burrito for dinner. I would load that mother as full with beans, rice, and meat as possible. I usually ended up with something that was about the size of a fat baby's arm. Yeah, that all came to a stop when one of the storage managers saw me making my own burrito. After that, we would get written up if they caught us making our own food like burritos and whatnot. My freshman year of college, I made it so that no one in not just my dorm, but all dorms on campus were allowed to use the microwave located in each of the dorm's common area after 10 p.m. Because drunk but me went to microwave a Hot Pocket one night and instead of setting the timer to 3 minutes, I set it to 30, which wouldn't have been a problem if I stayed there waiting for it, but drunk but me decided at that moment, hey, you know what would be even better than being drunk? Being drunk and high! And proceeded to go back to my room for a bong hit, which turned into several, which turned into me nearly passing out, roused only by the now blaring fire alarm that made everyone else in the dorm to also have to go outside in the middle of the goddamn night. And of course, due to the whole where there's smoke, there's fire rule, a couple of fire trucks showed up to the action. Me and everyone else that I lived in this dorm with were all standing outside grumbling about what butthole caused this, some speculating that someone was stupid enough to have pulled a false alarm. At a certain point amongst that grumbling did it dawn on me that I just left that Hot Pocket in the microwave, and that's when I started worrying that the sort of all this 3 a.m. hubbub could have been me, a deep, abiding shame that was validated when I saw one of the firefighters emerge from the dorm with a charred microwave. I joined in the chorus of incredulousness from the other cohabitants of my dorm who were shouting pleas of what drunken, dumb some butt burn up the microwave, and whoever did this is gonna get their butt beat, and similar witticisms. I figured at this point, lying was my only way out, and in the end it worked. No one that night ever found out it was me who burned up the microwave in my drunken and stoned state of dishevelment, and was the source of the no microwaves after 10 rule in the dorms that was enforced for the rest of the time I was in school, and could still be in place for all I know. My fourth high school now has a rule that teachers have to actually check in with the office before allowing a student into your class, even if you know them. My mom gave up on me going to high school because she didn't graduate, and neither did my grandma. No one on my dad's side graduated either, pulled me out of school. I moved across the state and started going to my old school again, and the teachers didn't check in on if I was supposed to be there. I still hated going to classes, but needed the testing so I could get credits, so I would ask my friends who had the same classes to tell me when their tests were, and would sit in the cafeteria for both lunch sections. It took them a few months to figure it out. Our gym where we had prep rallies was a level lower than most of the school, so there was an elevator so disabled people could get there. A few of my buddies and I would take the elevator back up with one of my best friends who was in a wheelchair, because we would sit with him during the rallies and walk back to class with him and chat in the elevator. One day, an assistant principal saw us get out with him and lost his mind because he thought we were using the elevator being lazy. They put up a sign next week saying to leave the elevator for people who need it. My buddy who was in the wheelchair and his dad sent several angry emails about it because it essentially segregated him from his friends. They took the sign down pretty soon after that. I guess that counts, but it was very brief enforcement of a rule. Don't know if this counts, but a guy in my school was the reason for the boys' bathroom being locked in between breaks because they poured washing powder and detergent down the toilet, then flushing, causing a foam party. If anyone needed the bathroom, we had to go to the office and fill out a form and then get a key. It lasted about 2 weeks until the teachers and most of our senior students kicked up a fit about it because it was taking about 10 minutes out of your class time if you needed to go, rather than the 2 minutes it used to take. Plus, the girls' bathroom was still open, so it became an equality issue and they got unlocked again. While working at McDonald's when I was younger, I thought it would be cool to make a quesadilla with what was in the kitchen. It turned out really well, but my manager ratted me to the GM, and the next day there was a sign in the kitchen stating that only items on the menu were to be made by cooks. When I was a freshman in college, I brewed beer in my dorm room. I got caught and written up, but it was before I added the yeast, so my defense was that I did not have alcohol in the dorm, and was just landing to bring the mixture to a 21-year-old friend off campus prior to adding the yeast. It was a private university, and they called bullcrap, but the penalty was just a slap on the wrist, and they changed the residency code to specifically prohibit fermenting yeast. That's not a bad defense, to be honest, but it obviously didn't work, and at least the punishment was, like they said, just a slap on the wrist. I wasn't the reason for the rule, but I was the one who implemented it. I was the network admin at a middle school back when mice balls was still a thing. Some of the kids were regularly stealing the balls out of the mice and taking them with them, so we'd have to replace the mice out of our meager spares. Because of that, I implemented the policy that all mice were to be turned upside down at the end of class, and the teacher was to walk around and visually inspect each mouse to ensure the ball was still in place. Ended the problem right there. During my junior year, my physics teacher did the mousetrap car assignment and held a competition to see who can make a mousetrap car go the farthest and fastest. I spent the whole night before making it. The next day, I did a test run right before the testing, and my rear axle snapped in half, basically ensuring that my mousetrap car was not going to move. Anyway, the teacher assigned 50 points for having your mousetrap car there, and 50 points if it moved. He gave each student at least 3 attempts to get his mousetrap car to move. Everyone in my class got theirs to move, and I knew mine was basically fricked. We were doing these runs in the hallways, and I was so glad that no one came out to see how mine will do. When it came to my turn, I set up my mousetrap car and let it go. The car was barely moving, and I was losing my mind due to how fricked I thought it was. My teacher had to come closer, get on his knees, and see that the car is actually slowly moving. Confused students came out due to my celebration and howling only to see the mousetrap car at my knees. I got full credits for that assignment. The physics teacher did the assignment again my senior year, and I saw that he changed it so that your mousetrap car had to go at least 1 foot to get those points. Maybe there were other students that were reasons for it, but as of my knowledge, the teacher had me in mind. I went to a Catholic school that had a strict uniform policy. I'm the oldest of 4. This will be important later. For Halloween, seniors are allowed to dress up while the underclassmen wear uniforms. Well, I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade and always wore a uniform. My senior year, I came into school on Halloween with a shirt and jeans on. When asked what I was, I replied, a public school student. Next year, my brother was a senior, and when the list of unacceptable costumes came up, public school student was on it. My youngest brother graduated in 2016, and it's still on the handout. So back in the day, there was an electronics store known as Circuit City. The attire was pretty simple: red polo shirt, black or khaki pants, and black shoes. Around this time, Heelys became popular, and I decided that I needed a pair of those loafers. I got mine in black and wore them shift after shift, scooting around the store and messing with customers as I silently glided between aisles and snuck up behind them. On my last day, I may have decided to have a few beers before work and figured I would put in a few hours, get my check and bail. I also may have decided that running in said Heelys to chase after a soon-to-be former co-worker was a fantastic idea, and subsequently tripped, which resulted in me flying into a yellow concrete pole. This resulted in me hitting the pole with the palm of my hand, think Superman, but more idiotic and with poor posture, and breaking my arm. After getting a fancy cast, I filed workers' compensation because, why the heck not? After getting approved, since there was nothing defining whether or not the black shoes were supposed to be wheel-free, Circuit City promptly amended the handbook and stated that flat black bottomed shoes were the only acceptable kind. A year later, they went under, and I still have my Heelys. Even as an adult, I still catch myself being slightly jealous of kids with Heelys, because I'm like, I'm too old to wear Heelys, but I guess not. But also, I wish I had Heelys when I was a kid. Uni rolled out monthly internet traffic quotas because several students reportedly downloaded what at the time in history were inordinately excessive amounts of data. This was almost 20 years ago. My group of friends knew some people who worked in the uni's IT management department, so a few days after that was announced, we go by their office to head off for movie night, and I noticed a sheet of paper with a list of student numbers and associated traffic volumes posted on the team billboard. My student number is sitting right at the very top. The reason why it called my attention, comfortably sporting over 5 gigabytes of traffic, 5 times and 10 times the amount for the second and third students on the list. This was during the time where private cable internet had access to 640 kilobytes and institutions like universities had T1 connections, 1.5-ish megabytes. I asked what that was. Oh, That is why we're rolling out monthly internet quotas. That's the list of top 30 students who downloaded the most data, and next to them is how much they downloaded last month alone. Why do you ask? Do you know who some of these people are? I told them I didn't know about any of the others, but the one at the top was mine. The look on their faces was a mix of fascination and shock. And for the rest of the night, I had to listen to them ask me several times how had I managed to do that consistently for the last few months. A bit of background. Uni IT, being unable to guarantee that computers would be clean enough in the long run, had to put in place an OS image download that all computers would grab and reset themselves to. Imagine Windows 10 disk restore functionality, but in the late 90s and early 2000s. During a lot of project nights, labs were open 24/7 to students. We would end up eventually losing focus, which would quickly turn into playtime. Usually something like Q3 or Freelancer, as the computers were always tabula rasa on reboot. We were always asked to shut them down, and they themselves would do so if not logged into after a while. We ended up having to install it all again. We had enough disk copies. This was also the time I quite literally downloaded all that Game Hippo had to offer to try on campus computers, as well as repeat downloads of Stepmania, DDR, Beatmania for PC freeware, tons of songs, and the real clincher, accompanying high-quality videos that would play during gameplay. So yeah, I basically did it on repeat downloads. The funny thing about it is that when the limit came into play, students had to basically authenticate themselves with the uni proxy via basic authentication on browser. Every time someone expired their quota, the system would simply prompt you for authentication again, and thus my friends and I started using the account pool notion. You ran out of allowance? Here, use my account. Whole different can of worms. My senior year of high school, 2004, the powers that be decided we had to work on a year-long project of our choice. At the end of the year, we had to give a presentation on our project. The rules given to us for appropriate attire clearly stated students must wear either a dress, skirt, or a tie and collared shirt with slacks. Being a girl who really hated dresses and skirts, I decided to be smart and wear a tie, collared shirt, and slacks. Nobody argued with me, but the next year the rules stated boys wear a tie and slacks and girls wear skirts skirts or dresses. Yes, it was sexist. No, I wasn't protesting the sexism, I just wanted to wear pants all day for a 15-minute presentation. Nothing wrong with that if you ask me. So I've got two stories for this. One is in 6th grade and the other is in 9th grade. When I was in 6th grade, we used to shoot paper at our teacher with those little rubber band hair ties, whatever bracelet things. After a few months, the principal got tired of hearing the teachers complain that the kids were shooting paper at them. We did it in class, at recess, at lunch, on the bus, wherever we could. That Christmas, my mom bought me a big box of that stuff, so I showed up to school with the bag full of it and sold it to the kids. They got caught every time but never ratted me out. I just kept bringing it in and let them shoot it. We got in so much trouble for it now, they will suspend anyone for just having a rubber band. When I was in 9th grade, we had a prep rally assemble, and the Spirit Week theme for that day was class colors. My grade decorated our entire building with glitter all over the floor and walls, tables, chairs, desks. It was everywhere. 2 years later, they're still trying to clean it up. They banned glitter for the entire school. Nobody is allowed to use it because a few cheerleaders and student council went insane. I walked out of my second hour and it looked like a unicorn threw up. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Linked in the description below.